John Wayne was one of the biggest stars in American cinema, but he was also one of the most infamous. He built his career on Western classics like Stagecoach and The Searchers, becoming a fan favorite. But behind the scenes, he had a reputation for being stubborn, unapproachable, and flat-out difficult to work with. The truth is that the Duke had many tumultuous relationships with other actors throughout his career. Some made for his most lasting friendships, such as with Searchers co-star Ward Bond. Some feuds took years to settle, and some rivalries never got patched up at all. Here are 5 key examples, and they may not be the ones you expect. John Wayne had plenty of strong opinions about other actors, but his dislike for Gene Hackman might be the weirdest one. They never worked together, never crossed paths, yet Wayne apparently couldn't stand him. Hackman had just started making a name for himself with Bonnie and Clyde when Wayne was still in his late career prime. Critics loved Hackman, and he even picked up an Oscar nomination for it. But according to Wayne's daughter Isa, her father hated watching him on screen. Hackman could never appear on screen without my father skewering his performance. He called Hackman the worst actor in town. He's awful. What makes it even stranger, Isa had no idea why. There's no record of Wayne ever meeting him. This is especially tragic because the hate doesn't go both ways. In an interview while promoting Unforgiven, Hackman called Wayne one of the best actors ever, saying that while their politics were completely different, he still respected Wayne's talent and presence. There's no word on whether Hackman ever heard what Wayne thought of him, but maybe it's better that way. John Wayne and Clark Gable never worked together, but that didn't stop Wayne from having some pretty strong opinions about him. And not in a good way. In her memoir, John Wayne, My Father, Wayne's daughter Isa recalled him calling Gable extremely handsome in person, but an idiot. You know why he's an actor? It's the only thing he's smart enough to do. Brutal words, especially coming from someone who started out as a prop man. Isa believed Wayne's grudge had a lot to do with Mogambo in 1953.
You to a room at the other end.
Hey, wait a minute. Look. Can't you get me a canoe or a truck or a pair of roller skates, anything to get out of here?
Trucks couldn't get through this country even if I could spare one. So you're stuck with our company until next week's boat.
You mean there's no way to get out?
No! Now, weren't you going to do something about getting dressed?
Ooh. Boy.
Gable clashed with John Ford on set. At one point, he even stormed off in frustration. The movie still became a hit, but their relationship never recovered. And since Ford was one of Wayne's closest collaborators, Wayne took it personally. Asa put it simply, "In my father's way of thinking, disloyalty to allies was expressly forbidden. If Clark Gable took on John Ford, my father's code demanded that John Wayne stand by his old pal." You would think 2 icons of the American Western would naturally get along. However, Wayne never quite took a liking to Clint Eastwood, nor the morally dubious spaghetti westerns that made him a star. Wayne had made a career off of playing valiant heroes. Even the washed-up characters in his later films had codes of honor. Eastwood, on the other hand, often portrayed staunch anti-heroes, driven by their own selfish, violent means, with little care for law and order. John Wayne and Clint Eastwood crossed paths a lot in their careers, but Wayne was always a step behind. He actually got the chance to play Dirty Harry first, but he turned it down. Eastwood took it instead, and that movie turned him into an even bigger star. Wayne tried to catch up with McHugh, his own cop thriller, but it didn't work. The movie flopped, and it was obvious. Wayne just didn't have what Eastwood did.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But Ian, this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Things came to a head when Eastwood sent Wayne the script for High Plains Drifter. They'd both been interested in working together, but Wayne wasn't having it. He sent Eastwood a letter saying the movie did not represent the true spirit of the American pioneer, the spirit that had made America great. Eastwood didn't back down. I realized that there's 2 different generations, and he didn't understand what I was doing. That was it. They never worked together, and as Eastwood continued rising to genre glory, Wayne's career slowly went on the decline. John Wayne had a reputation for keeping things professional, but if he didn't like the way you worked, you'd hear about it, either on set or behind your back. That's exactly what happened with Kim Darby, his co-star in True Grit.
Marshal Rooster Cogburn and I are going after the murderer, Tom Cheney.
Cogburn, how did you light on that greasy vagabond?
They say he has grit. I wanted a man with grit.
Yes, I suppose he has that. He's a notorious thumper. He's not a man I would care to share a bed with.
Nor would I.
I wouldn't trust him too much.
I've only paid him a token payment. The balance will be paid when the job is done.
It may prove to be a long, hard journey.
The tension started before filming even began. Wayne had promised the role of Mattie Ross to his daughter, Asa, but director Henry Hathaway had already cast Darby. Wayne had to take back his promise, and Asa was devastated. Things didn't get any better once they started working together. Wayne thought Darby was too independent, too determined, great for Mattie Ross, but not the kind of energy he wanted from a co-star. Meanwhile, Darby barely acknowledged him. She was dealing with a crumbling marriage and a newborn while shooting, and Wayne saw that as unprofessional. He later vented about it, saying, "I like me and my screen partners to get along. Jesus, I got along better with Kirk Douglas." John Wayne was a proud conservative and a staunch patriot, especially during wartime. When World War II broke out, he wanted to serve like so many other actors at the time, but in the end, he never enlisted. Instead, he threw his support behind the war effort in other ways, including through his films. By the time Vietnam came around, Wayne was all in on the fight against communism. He had backed Joe McCarthy and the House Un-American Activities Committee, and he fully supported America's involvement in the war. Jane Fonda, on the other hand, saw things very differently. She grew up watching her father, Henry Fonda, openly oppose Wayne's anti-communist stance. By the 70s, she had become one of the loudest voices against the Vietnam War.
I think that what's happening is that in order to make it look like we have won a war which we did not win, to keep American people hating Vietnamese, which we have no reason to hate, to be sure that Congress will not vote appropriations to Vietnam, a very small handful, less than 20 out of over 500 POWs, are many of whom, by the way, made very strong anti-war statements, signed very strong statements, are now saying that they did so under duress and because they were tortured. And I think that time will tell, and over the years, just the way it happened around the Tonkin Gulf incident, we will see that, that it is not true.
In 1972, she posed for a now infamous photo in Hanoi, sitting at an anti-aircraft gun used against American planes. The backlash was instant, and conservatives, Wayne included, were furious. Wayne didn't hold back, saying, "I would think somebody like Jane Fonda would be terribly ashamed and saddened that they were part of causing us to stop helping the South Vietnamese. How the hell can she and her husband sleep at night?" Fonda never backed down. She stayed politically outspoken her entire life, even getting arrested multiple times, including at 82 years old.